Public testimony was heard today on a collaborative bill looking to improve the recruitment, retention, and wellness of law enforcement. The proposal was brought forward by a stakeholder group. It would create a retention council and require death certificates to note whether the deceased had been a first responder. It also calls for changes at the state's Criminal Justice Academy, officer wellness training, critical incident debriefing, and funding for a wellness coordinator. Those who spoke in favor say the state does a great job of preparing officers to survive a shift, but it's time to adjust the focus to surviving a career.
We have a great informal network that is set up that we believe has been addressing some of the horrible statistics that you have in that report before you. But that's what it is it's an informal network. So if somebody doesn't know who to call or how to call, we don't get a hold of them. And then they can end up as data in that report in front of you.
While nobody testified directly against the bill, representatives from the Maine Criminal Justice Academy spoke from a neutral stance. They agreed the issues are real, but warned the proposed changes could put added strain on staff.